Sorry, I couldn't see that from the back of the room. And I also brought something.
Yay.
I know it's U.S. It's not Australian. Sorry, I didn't have to. Do we have are we giving out
Yep.
copies or we are? Oh, we have copies. Yeah. Sorry, I'm really excited to be here. So, hi. What do you guys want to hear? Oh, I'm supposed to talk about the release. That's it. I didn't think I was jet lagged till right this moment. Okay, so With All My Soul is the 7th and final book in the Soul Screamer series, and I was listening to the description of it a minute ago, and it sounds crazy, but all that stuff's really actually in there. Don't really think about it being as crazy until you hear it in one sentence. Whereas it's actually the longest of the Soul Screamers books, so there's plenty of room in there. Let's see. I wanted to do a series about the 7 deadly sins way back when, and I wanted to write a book about a banshee, so I put them together. And that is how I wound up with the Soul Screamer series, so it's no coincidence that there are 7 books, and I feel very blessed to have been able to do all 7 of them, because that's never a guarantee. You know, when you start out, it always depends on how well the books do, how many you'll get to write. So it was really, really awesome when I heard that I was going to get to do all 7. So the last book is, do you guys know what the other books are? Does anyone? I never actually said in the books that that's what they are. My agent thought that was kind of cheesy. I don't know, but I did it anyway. So can you put them together? Do you know what the first book was? Are y'all familiar with the 7 deadly sins? Some of you more than others? I'm pretty small. Okay, the first book was, let's start with the last one, I remember that. The last one was Rage. The first book was 5 years ago, so I'll work backwards. But this final book is the Rage book, where after everything that Kaylee has been through, she's actually finally had enough. Well, truth be told, it was enough from the very beginning, but at this point, there's no way forward without making a change. Without, okay. Has anyone actually read the series? Do you know what I'm talking about? Okay. Well, she's being plagued constantly by hellions, particularly Avari, who is the demon of avarice. So he's greedy. He wants everything, and the thing that he wants most in the world is Kaylee. And the question I get asked most often is, why on earth does he want Kaylee? And that is because he and Kaylee are pretty much polar opposites. She is everything that he cannot understand, and he wants to have her and understand her. And there's absolutely no way that he can ever really understand what she is, what she's about, what she does, because he's a demon and they cannot feel human emotions. They can feed on them, but they cannot, well, in my book, I don't know what the other ones are doing with their demons, but my demons cannot feel human emotions. So she is kind and generous to a fault, and he is exactly the opposite of that. So he sort of just wants to tear her apart and examine every part and put it back together and start all over again, which we call torture. So that's his plan. She's not down with that, so there's going to be a fight. So she's lost, at this point, several family members and loved ones to the netherworld and its various demons, and in order to finally put the whole thing to bed and try to save everyone that she's ever loved, she has to make a deal with a demon. And if you know anything about the series or about Kaylee as a person, that is the line that she would never cross. But you know, there comes a point when there's no other choice, where she is not, because she's not a superhero, she doesn't have any useful supernatural abilities, so which she laments a couple of times in the book. She can't fly, she doesn't have super strength, she can't read minds, you know, nothing that is obviously helpful except for screaming and maybe bursting someone's eardrums, but that hasn't come in incredibly helpful for her so far. So she needs help, and everything comes with a price. So I kind of feel like the ending is somewhere that we've been headed the whole time, and people said I wouldn't do it. That's like daring me. Yeah. So I feel like the ending was one of those situations. The only other one like that was in If I Die, when I called my editor and said I'm thinking about doing something crazy. And if you've read the book, you probably know how that ends. She's like, you're going to do it, aren't you? Yeah, I am. I'm going to do that. So I don't know how you want to spin that on the back of the book. We had to rewrite the blurb, at least in the U.S. copies, because of that. It's the same kind of a deal. At the end of this one, I sort of feel like it was inevitable where the story was going, and if you know Kaylee and who she is, you'll understand why she's willing to do the things that she is willing to do at the end of this book. And I think that it was a very delicate sort of balance. Writing the things, the sacrifices that she makes in this book, and then if I die, they could have broken her. They could have broken me. Very nearly did in a couple of cases. Kind of attached to her after all this time. She's been with me longer than my last 3 houses, and actually almost as long as my cat. My kids are older, but she's kind of like one of mine, except she's fully grown now. And for those of you who read the Shifter series and wrote to me and said, "What happens next and why won't you tell us?" That's the part where I said, "Make it up for yourself. You can have it however you want." I get a lot of complaints about not having an epilogue in the Shifter series. There is an epilogue in the Soul Screamer series, so you will get to see sort of the ending. I cannot promise the happily ever after, but I can promise the happily ever after for everyone who survives. Take that as you will. Let's see. Any questions about the series or about the book, or anything that you want me to talk about? I could talk about my new song. I just got it all. Go. I did. No big questions. Okay, I'll talk some more. Let's see. Is this just YA? We're doing just YA today? No, we're not. Oh, I was supposed to tell you about what I have coming up next, wasn't I? I can't. I can absolutely 100% for certain tell you that I cannot tell you what I'm doing next. So, there you go. I do have a YA project, and it is not, it's not in a genre that I've done before, so that'll be something new, and I do have a new adult project, and it is in a genre that I've done before, and that one will definitely be coming out, in the U.S. they're saying next summer. So it's more in the vein of the Shifter series than the Unbound stuff, which makes it immediately accessible, I think, easier than some of the Unbound stuff was. But yet, different. I don't seem to be able to push myself into one of the little holes for the square pegs. But, yeah, a hand.
So are you found going to be the last of the Unbound series?
Yes, Oathbound is the last of the trilogy, and you could not pay me to write another one. They're so hard. so hard to write. Those are the most labor-intensive books. I mean, it's like giving birth for 9 months. I swear, without the epidural, the thing that was tricky about the Unbound books is that Shifters and Soul Screamers are sort of in my comfort zone, both subject matter and style. The first-person narrative from a single character and the repeating character. So in Unbound, I sort of did nothing that I was familiar with as a challenge, which was fun until it wasn't. So yeah, so it has dueling first-person points of view, and not just 2 first-person points of view. One of them is a guy, and I've never been a guy, so that was interesting, trying to get into his head. And then beyond that, it's a different couple for every book. So with every single book, it's not just 1 new character, it's 2 new characters, and it's 2 different perspectives. And it was quite a challenge. And the rules of the world are quite challenging. You ever heard the phrase, painting yourself into a corner? Yeah, I wrote myself into one, and I did not know how to turn around and draw a window to get out. It was the whole series is tough. However, I feel like they are, especially Shadowbound, perhaps one of the best things that I've ever done. Maybe because it was so hard. Oh, thank you. That was a dark place writing that book, but it critically is, I think, one of my better received. So we'll see for Oathbound. It was also torturous, but but we'll find out soon. Of course, with that one, I was in the middle of a move and a lot of other stuff. So if you don't know, I don't actually live in San Antonio anymore. So I'll just fix my bio a little late there. We just moved to Oklahoma. So that's okay. You can take it. With Oathbound. The thing about that world is I fell in love with the concept, with the idea that you can be bound into a promise, where you physically cannot break it unless you die. You have a choice. You can sort of be tortured to death, or you can keep your word. And I specialize in putting people into positions where there's no get out. And no matter what decision you make, somebody's going to die or somebody's going to suffer. And it's not even always the person who's making the decisions. I mean, it's easy to say, yes, I would give up my life for someone else, but can you also say I would give up someone else's life for someone else? It's a harder choice to make, and that's what I did in Unbound over and over. And a little more than that. So yeah, there were no good choices in that book for the characters. It was really tough. It's a similar sort of situation for Kaylee in the last of the Soul Screamers books, and then a couple leading up to that. They sort of got darker and longer and aged up, I think, hopefully with the reader throughout the series. Although I noticed that you guys are all grown, so so I guess it's okay for you to read all those passages. But I thought it was. Did somebody describe me as spicy? Not me, the book. That's interesting. I think that was the first for me. So yay! I'm gonna write that one down. But yeah. So the I kind of feel like in If I Die, I was breaking hearts, and then before I wake, I was putting them back together. Sort of a slow process, not just for Kaylee and Todd, but for Nash as well. Some of my favorite scenes, I was saying this afternoon, and it's still true, some of my favorite scenes between Kaylee and Nash. I don't want to spoil. Plug your ears if you haven't read If I Die.
I was going to use one finger.
Some of my favorite scenes for Kaylee and Nash actually take place after their breakup. It was just so much more fun to rebuild their relationship as a friendship than it ever was to write them as a couple. And then at that point, everything is so shattered that you have the broken brother relationship and the broken romance, and then Nash's complete inability to understand what Sabine really is for him. So it was really sort of fun to put him back together. Like Humpty fell off the wall, and I'm piecing together the eggshells, very slowly, very carefully throughout the rest of the book. And I feel like he, in With All My Soul, he finally is going to get some peace. If he survives, I didn't say that. If he survives, he will get peace. If he doesn't, no issues. Yeah, go ahead.
In the Shifters series, were you Team Mark or Team Jace? Because what you did backwards and forwards with those characters.
I don't think I'm allowed to pick a team. Am I allowed to do that?
Oh, you can.
I'm kind of like their mom, which is a creepy I'm not their mother. Yeah, I don't know.
Who'd you have more fun writing?
Jason's more fun. Mark is more stable.
Serious.
I totally play The Sims within his characters.
And
now they have children. Which they don't in the book, but yeah, so it's pretty fun. And I was so true to them. I gave Mark a temper, and Jace is kind of sloppy and never cleans up after himself, so Faith is always walking around washing the dishes, and she hates that.
Never do a spin-off from that at all?
I would be open to that, but it's not just up to me. At this point, the series has been over for 2 years or more, at least in the U.S. So, it's interesting because I get letters weekly asking for more of those books, which would be interesting, but it's sort of like going back in time. I'm not the same writer. I hope I'm better, but it would be interesting going back. I did write a short story with Jace and Abby, Faith's cousin, and that is in an anthology that Rachel King edited called Cheek Spot. Yes, that's not what they originally called it, and then someone said, oh, we can't put the A word on a cover, so yeah, Cheek Spot, which I think is really not a very good title, but my story is called Hunt, which is probably also not a good title, but it was fun. So it's sort of a cabin in the woods, hunters meet prey sort of a thing, that you don't really know who's hunting and who's prey until the very end, and there's some gross stuff in there. But it would be complicated to write more. If I did, it would probably be a Jace.
That's what
Yeah, that's what you want.
That's where I'm going.
I guess you were on Jace's side.
Mostly, but then you flipped me, and then I went back, and then I went back. You gave me a hard time with that.
I really do write white. But yeah, so I don't know. Shifters keeps coming back to haunt me. We'll see if that happens to us. It's weird though saying goodbye to Soul Screamers because I've actually written that for longer than I ever wrote Shifters, more books and a longer time. So it's sort of a bother to say goodbye. It's bittersweet, I guess, is the word I'm looking at. It's sort of a yay, I finished the series, and we can relax. No, you can't really, but I mean, then the series is over, but then it's, oh no, I finished the series. And there's what next thing, and then there's saying goodbye to people that I made up. But I spend more time with the people that I made up than I spend with my real life friends, especially when we were in San Antonio. I didn't really know anybody, so 18 hours a day in your head with people that you've made up, and you'd think that would mean you're the boss. It's not always like that. So that was sort of fun and bittersweet. Any other questions?
prefer writing one or the other, like young adult versus adult, or find one easier?
I do, but the answer changes depending on what I'm writing. So, yeah, young adult is easier for me. And I haven't decided yet whether that means it's because I'm doing it right or because I'm doing it wrong. I don't know. But it flows a lot faster. I can do, well, for the Soul Screamers books, I can do one of those in about 2 months for the rough draft, whereas the adult books, both Shifters and Unbound, especially Unbound, take quite a bit longer than that. But there's, you know, originally I thought there would be less freedom in young adult. There would be things that you can't do, or that they would tell you that you can't do, and that has absolutely not been the case with Harlequin. As a matter of fact, my editor had a heart attack over several things that I wrote in Shifters, but she never even really blinked at all the, you know, the stuff that I put Kaylee and Crew through. So is laughing, but yeah, there was a scene in one of the Shifters books where there was a guy eating someone alive in a tree, and she's like, "Whoa, really, Rachel?" And the proposal, and I was like, "Well, just let me write it, and then if you don't like it in the manuscript, you know, we can take it out." So it's still in there, but yeah. So, you know, in a way, it's kind of interesting because the Shifter series, Faith was Faith and Kaylee are sort of opposite in a way. And on the surface, Soul Screamers seems like it's about death, but really it's about life. It's about Kaylee fighting to live in spite of all of it. And even when she fails, she's still fighting. And Faith is fighting for different things. And in a lot of ways, I think that the themes in Soul Screamers are just as grown up, if not more so, than in Shifters, because Shifters was not as life and death as Soul Screamers is. Kaylee is literally mired in well, in another world, you can be literally mired in a lot of things, but surrounded by death so much more than Faith was. For Faith, it was about freedom, and for Kaylee, it's really about life, about saving herself and saving other people before her. So I guess they have that in common. The put yourself behind everyone else, put everyone else first. But there are some differences in the YA and the adult, mostly just in content. So you're going to get a lot of closed door stuff in YA. Yeah.
I've got them up here, but...
Oh, no. Oh, goodness, I made the mistake of, I don't read fan fiction, I really don't, but I Googled myself once, which I also don't do anymore, with good reason. But I found a fan fiction once where they had opened the door in the Soul Screamers series, in the scenes where you close the door, and then you back away, and you let them have their privacy. Someone had opened that door in fan fiction, and it was really weird for me, because, you know, that's stuff that I didn't write and tried not to imagine, and there it is, right there on the screen.
Well, what did you rate it out of 10?
What?
What did you rate it out of 10?
Yeah. I kind of closed the screen when I realized where it was going. It's interesting, we've tried so much to shelter teenagers, but the fan fiction was written by teenagers, and they took it way farther, you know, than I ever did. I didn't say they know what they're doing. So that was, I say that, I don't know what I can say, what I can't say. I don't have a filter here. I do on the internet. I have a backspace key that they don't let me carry that with me live in person. So, yeah. Also Photoshop, I don't get that live in person either. So that would be my wish. But it was really interesting to, I didn't read much of it, because it's kind of creepy, because I do feel more like their mother than Jason Mark's mother, but yeah, whatever you don't put in there, they know what you're leaving out, and they are willing to fill in the blanks, so it's kind of interesting to read that. I wouldn't recommend it.
Do you think the line shifted more and more as the book goes on?
For what's okay in YA?
Yeah, for what's okay. Do you think it sort of shifts a little bit every year?
I'm sure that that's true on one level, but the truth is you can find really whatever you want in YA. You can find, my friend Melissa says, I have to give credit, it's not my thought, Melissa Marr, she says that YA tends to skew young or older. You can find the ones like Allie Carter, very clean, also very adventurous and full of action, but they do skew young, so you can give them to your 12-year-old, and then you have the others like what I write and Holly Black and things like that, which are going to skew older, and the adult crowd, the crossover here is teens and adults, whereas the crossover over here is teens and tweens. So I think that you can find anything in pretty much any time period. I mean, I don't think it's new what we're doing. I don't think it's as new as we think it is if you go back and look. So you could find, like, does anyone read Cody stuff. That's very, if you don't know what's the word, designated ugly fat friends. Yeah, that is what the DUF stands for. It's the theory that every group has as the one person who doesn't know why she's there in the group. She's just a designated ugly person. And the theory is that we've all felt like that, and I know that I've certainly been there. I, go back to my hotel room after this, and I'll be like, man, I was the DUF tonight. So, we've all been there, but the girl in the book is exploring her own sexuality in a way that is much, much more, you're seeing it from in her head, and she is very upfront. She's not shy, and she's not ashamed. She's very upfront about it, and that is definitely why it was written by her when she was still a teenager. I think she was 19, something like that, when she wrote it. I think she was in her 20s when it was published. I mean, that is as authentic as YA gets, and if anyone is closing the doors and censoring, it's the adults, it's not the kids doing it. So a lot of times the censorship that we do, if we do any, is more to please the parents and the buyers to get the stuff on the shelf than to please the kids, because they know what you're not saying. They will fill in the blanks.